Okay, can you hear me? Okay, all good. So let's start. My name is Marcin Sterling. I'm working for Redbox Digital currently. Also, I'm a maintainer of one of the Magento search extensions. I don't know if anyone heard about Blast Search Lucene. I'm working with PHP for last, I think, 15 years, and with Magento from very beginning when Magento started. So it's quite a long time. Right now we observing a new era. Magento 2 is coming, so everyone is quite interested. And we wanted at Redbox, we wanted to give it a go. How data migration will work for Magento 1 and Magento 2. So I think it's pretty hot topic. So I've selected a quote from Albert Einstein, which is not everything that can be counted counts, and not everything that counts can be counted, which means that the data migration, you're gonna potentially lose some data you forgot about, and then you're gonna realize on the longer run. But let's try to establish that through that presentation. And obviously it's really nice to have some nice pictures. So I've picked something like that. And I think it really nicely describes what happens with data migration tool I was testing. So what happens is, as you go along, you basically starting to have more troubles, and then you try to clean it, and then you run circles and you got lost. So this is my experience with data migration tool. I'm gonna establish it through this presentation, and I'm gonna leave the judgment to you, but that was my experience. So what is that data migration? Data migration is the process of importing legacy data from one or more old system to new system or systems, which is quite obvious. I just wanted to establish that we understand it. I'm not going to talk about any code migration. It's nothing about the layouts or theming. It's purely about the data migration from Magento 1 to Magento 2. Data migration is typically part of the larger program. So this is one of your tasks you need to do. As I said, you need to migrate the code, you need to migrate the layouts and the data. With the migrations, you have, excuse me, you have two options. The one is a big bang. Basically, you shut everything down, you do migration, you stand up, and the new site is live. Obviously, the time between shutting down and going live, it might be a couple hours, it might be 2 weeks. You never know what's going to happen. The trickle migrations, it's a process where basically both systems you migrate the data once while the old system, legacy system, is still running, and then you run both systems, for example, simultaneously, and you migrate only changes, only deltas from one system to another. So when you start with data migration, there are questions you need to ask yourself. This is not the final list of the questions, but I think those are quite important ones. How much data are we actually going to get from one system to another? Is it going to be all data, or it's going to be just selection of the data? If it's just selection, which parts of the data you're going to migrate? How are you going to determine what data you're going to migrate? It's going to be on creation date, or maybe it's going to be status of the product or customer, maybe some combination of criteria. This is quite important because you might have some legacy data which you don't want to migrate into the new system. Maybe it's better to archive it somewhere on the site and start Magento 2 with only, I don't know, customers and some initial set of orders or products. If you're going to decide that you're going to move data which was created after a certain time, you need to ask yourself what's going to be that period. And the last question is, where should we clean the data? Is it going to be in the Magento 1? So you're going to clean it, migrate the data, or you're going to migrate the data as it is and then clean it in Magento 2. So this is quite important. It would be nice if the remote is working. Okay, so from my experience, I've spent with the data migration tool, I think it was over 2 weeks, like every day, working on it, solid. And I can tell you that this is not a one-day task, because when the project managers are actually catering time for this task. They say, okay, 1, 2 days, great, all data will be migrated, everyone's happy. This is not 1 day task, definitely. So there are options where you can migrate from community 1 to community 2, community to enterprise, or enterprise to enterprise. And between those systems are major differences. So in what I was doing, I was importing from community 1.702 to Magento 2.02. Okay, there's no silver bullet solution. I can tell you right now, if you're gonna run it, it's not gonna do 100% of your job. So don't expect any miracles. Don't think, okay, it's just, you know, couple files to configure, run it, and it's gonna happen magically. It's not gonna happen magically. It's gonna go bad, you're gonna spend time on it. It will go good at the very end, but you need to spend time on it. So let your PM or your, you know, product owner or your boss, I need time to investigate how long it's gonna take, then try to do that, try to see the damage, multiply by 5, and then, you know, give the number. That's true. So there are issues with the source data. There are issues after migration, so the data when it's migrated. Magento, they created a really nice command line tool. It gives you like a progress indicator. They give you estimated time on every task. And I love the last message which says complete. Great. So after you see the message complete, you go to see your Magento 2 site, and it's like completely crashed. You know, the products are broken, categories, pages are broken. So when Magento says it's complete, it's actually the task of moving data from one database to another database is complete. It doesn't mean that your site it will be live and up and running. So also amount of data is quite important. It makes such a big difference if you're importing 20,000 products or 2 million products. Obviously, it might go wrong in terms of the memory usage or on the resources usage. I'm going to come back to how it works later on, but it's really important to take that into consideration as well. So, as I said, please reserve time for it. And there's a really nice article on Alan Kent's website about migration, so you can read about it. Okay, so what kind of data tool should migrate? So obviously it's like products, everything related to products, categories, customers, orders, configurations, CMS elements, websites, media, and also maybe any other custom data you need to migrate as well. You might have some extensions you're going to be porting to Magento 2. You use some custom tables you created, I don't know, queuing tables, additional stock tables, whatever tables you might create, you need to think about it. So what exactly has changed from Magento 1 to Magento 2? Quite a lot. There's plenty of new tables. And so tables which were in Magento 1, they will never exist in Magento 2 anymore. Tables were renamed, and the columns were deleted, renamed. So basically, there's quite a lot of changes happened between those two systems. Also, some of the data, that was only about the structure of the data, so tables and the columns within the tables. The actual data has changed as well. For example, simple example is the model. The new namespacing has changed. So all the models, like for example your source models or backend model for your attributes has changed, and you need to definitely do that. There are some values which needs to be nulled, even if they were empty in Magento 1, they needs to be null in Magento 2. Also, what's going to happen is when you migrate the data to new system, there might be some clashes. So the new data needs to be prefixed, so it's not going to clash with the Magento 2. Okay, so obviously it's quite important to check what's available on the market to migrate the data. Yeah. The criteria I used for searching for the tool was ease of use. You know, how quickly I can start and actually try if I can migrate or not. I don't want to spend 2 or 3 weeks trying to configure some tool, run it, and then it breaks. Speed, that's quite important. Security, this is very important. The data you're going to migrate, that's going to be very, very sensitive data. Customers, orders, any other sensitive information. It might be some payment tokens or authorizations. Whatever data you're going to migrate, it's very important how this data going to be manipulated. Is it going to be stored somewhere temporarily or maybe permanently? Do you need to clean it afterwards? So that's quite important. Accuracy of the import, if the data is exactly as it was before. If it's repeatable, so basically if you can run the tool 1,000,000 times and the output will be exactly the same. And obviously it's for us, for Redbox, it's quite important we can use it on multiple projects. So how easy it is to use it on multiple projects and how much is the effort to configure it for different needs. So what's available? Uber team Magento to data migration tool. I don't know if you heard about it. It just popped up in Google. I think the first, just before the Magento, so I've put it first as well. Why not? Then there's official Magento migration tool. Right now it's same for community and enterprise under one repository. It was separate, but right now it's one tool. Obviously you have old way using CSV, so you can try to export into CSV and import it again. Good luck with that. I've tried it. The differences are massive between Magento 1 and Magento 2, and obviously it didn't work. So yeah, a lot of troubles with it. But maybe if you have 5 products or 10 products, maybe it's a good idea. You can try your custom written solution. If you have time to develop a tool again, I don't think it's worth it, but there are some enthusiasts. For example, I found this guy, Schumacher FM. He wrote his own tool. It's quite amazing. It's massive. It does everything, but everything is hard-coded. If you want to change something, it's going to be very, very difficult. So let's maybe quickly start with Uber Team Migration Tool. It's a Y framework-based browser tool. I've started this by installing it and looking into the source code first without running it. I didn't know the provider. I wanted to check if they don't do anything stupid like sending all my customers to the servers or something like that. So I looked through the code, and this tool actually looks like Magmai. It is like a standalone application which is included in iframe in your admin. So you don't need to be even logged in to access this tool. That is not good. So don't use it on production. You can use it on local or secure it on production properly before you're going to use it. There's no configuration required, which is very interesting. This tool is detecting what's going on with the initial data, using models, saving it into a different database. This is great. You just need to configure the connection details for both databases. It's very, very slow, and it's purely because it has a lot of logic, and it also has models, and it's depending on cascading, on MySQL. So yeah, it's quite heavy. But I think for smaller tasks, like if you have only a couple thousand records to migrate, I would start with that. Why not? It supports delta changes and can be migrated on top of existing data, which is great. So you can run a couple times. It will compare the data in source and destination. It will take the changes. So I think it's a really big benefit, and it does the job. I ran it for the first time, and it worked. So amazing. But it was too slow to migrate 200,000 products. What's happening is this tool, because it only runs in the browser, it relies on your server settings. So for example, if your PHP timeout is, 60 seconds or 3 minutes, and you have 200,000 products, it will time out. I was trying to make it CLI, but when I opened the code, it's like one controller with 1 million lines. And everything is session-based. So they store all the settings in session. Probably someone could rewrite it. This is on GitHub. You can always fork it, try to fix it. But yeah, that's definitely worth tracking it. This is the screen. This is the Y application running in the iframe. and this is the connection details, and I think, oh yeah, that's the Magento version you need to specify. So, okay, so this is Magento data migration tool. High hopes. I was really enthusiastic, like, oh my God, something really new, I want to try that. So, this is a new tool, as I said, for Enterprise and Community Edition. It has all the configuration profiles for all known Magento versions. They did a really good job there. So they mapped all the tables, all the columns, all the relations from all Magento versions to all Enterprise and Community Magento 2 versions. So, well done, guys. Definitely, it was a really hard job. Well, it works with Magento sample data. That's it. So, that was my biggest disappointment, really. If you change sample data a little bit, that's it. So I think that the definition of done was make it work with sample data. We have really nice tests. They're all green. Job done. So it supports delta changes. Cannot be migrated on top of existing data. So they assume that your Magento 2 installation will be absolutely clean. You just installed it and you want to migrate the data. Yeah, this is very important. You should start with the fresh database, install Magento 2, and migrate the data. If you try to change something, it will break. Also, this tool is dumped to what kind of framework is operating with. You could use this tool to migrate WordPress to Drupal or migrate your own database to Magento. This tool has absolutely no idea about Magento. It's just the set of XML files which tell this tool where to take the data, where to push it, what to do with it, and save it, which is a big benefit. Because, for example, we used it at Redbox to load orders from the old system to flat table, which is like an archive table, and it does it. So it's brilliant. But it requires perfect data source. If there's anything wrong with your data on Magento 1, and you might not know about it, it will break really badly. So it's very, very quick. So I'll tell you about the numbers later on, but it's flying quick. So you can definitely use it for large volumes. I said it's really good because it's XML-based configuration. So potentially you can store those configurations per client in your source control version, and you can see how those files evolve, and you can reuse it. So it's really good. That's the difference between Uber Team, where everything is stored in the sessions database. What I found really strange is the way they specify the connection from the source to the destination. You need to do it in the XML file. First of all, I think it's a security problem. I don't want my details to be in the file. And the second thing is this tool runs on Magento 2. So you need to have Magento 2 up and running. So why don't they just use existing Magento 2 as a destination and you can specify your source? I don't know, but that was the decision they made. For example, we at Redbox, we customize it. You can set your connection details through command line. So you can set all the hosts and username, password databases from the command line. So no files are required for that. Okay, I just said it's very flexible configuration. There's a progress bar, works really, really good. It's not Magento, they use Symfony, that's why it works really good. It gives a very, very accurate time when it's going to finish, and you can see the progress that something actually is going on. It's not like you're waiting and you don't know if it's running or not. So that's very good. And what I really don't like about this tool, and the other one as well, there's no automated data verification after import. How the hell I'm going to know that those 200,000 products are okay or not? You can test it like randomly, test 10, 20, maybe you can hire 50 people and they're going to test 1,000 products. Yay, there's only 199,000 products to check, right? I don't know what they were thinking about, but they definitely didn't cover that, and this is a serious problem of both tools. So, installation. In Magento 2, everything is composer-based now. Very easy. You just fire a couple commands, and it's going to be included in your Magento. It's really nicely isolated in vendor Magento data migration. And this is how you run it. You run one command. You give the path to the domain configuration file, and it runs. What can you do with it? You can run it in 3 different modes, and they are separate modes. First one is the data, where Magento is copying only data, whole data as it is to new Magento 2. You can run delta. Excuse me. Good try. Delta mode is pretty interesting. They create tons of tables on Magento 1, and they create triggers which are observing original Magento tables. And whenever something happens in your Magento 1, like new product was added, order was placed, or session was created, whatever, they insert data into those special tables, and this is how Magento 2 knows that something has changed and needs to be migrated. That's pretty clever. Also, there's a third mode, which is settings. It's going to migrate all the settings. Wow, one table, core config data, right? Data is read. This is quite important. Data is read completely into memory, yeah, transformed, and then saved in batches. If you have a lot of data, when I was running the tool, I was observing what's going on with my server. I wanted to know what's going to happen on production, yeah. You will see when the tool runs, there's not much MySQL activity going on, which was like, I would expect there's going to be tons of queries flying around. No, it really quickly reads the data, then PHP is processing it, which takes ages. It's still quick, but takes ages. And then data is saved in batches into new database. So it's like short read, long PHP processing, and short write. Okay, so just to quickly give you some overview, this is the XML file that they provide. You have different steps, and you can see different modes there. So every step can have 3 different modes, and it's integrity, data, volume. This is what Magento gives you, but there's nothing stopping you from extending that, and this is what we've done. You can have like a first step where you're going to prepare your data, you can clean it, you can delete the products you don't want to import or do other activities, and then Magento process will run. Also, you might have something running after everything finishes. Maybe you want to reindex everything. You just create your own class within migration namespace, and you can do whatever you want, which is great. There are more settings in this file. As I said, there's a source, and there's a destination as well. And also you have additional transformation files specified in all those nodes there. Magento is giving you all those files. Those files are part of this tool. You can open every of those files, edit it for your needs, for your project needs. Okay, so they use different definitions, obviously. So you need to learn new keywords. Source is the old Magento database. Destination is the Magento 2 database. Document, it's MySQL table. Field is MySQL column. Not that bad. This is the example of the file, where you can see, for example, there's a transformation going on here. And for example, for this column, they always set value 100. Or for attributes set name, they add prefix migration underscore. So it's pretty easy to add stuff to this file if you want to do some extra transformation or run stuff. If you actually look on the migration handler, there's a set of predefined commands you can run, but nothing stops you from creating your own ones. Okay, this is the funny part, yeah? You run the tool, and I can guarantee you the first time you run it, you're going to have errors straight away. Red, a lot of errors, yeah? So the way you work with this tool is, it's almost like writing some automated unit tests. You basically start with red, you fix stuff until it's green, right? So I really don't like the way they message information back to you. For example, they're going to say that document sales flat order fields are not mapped. So right now what you need to do, you need to copy those fields and this document and insert it into XML file. So like copy pasting from here, it's terrible. They could export to XML all those errors, so you can just copy and paste sections or something like that. I don't know how they've created those XML files, but for sure it was something automated. So you can imagine that if you have a lot of fields or columns not mapped, you're going to spend a lot of time with those XML files. And Magento, before it starts the migration, compares the whole database, the source one and the destination. If anything is wrong, like something doesn't match, it will flag it. It will not run. So every single column table must be mapped. You need to decide if you want to ignore it, you want to transform it, you want to rename it, or do something with it. You can see this destination field's not mapped. So basically in the customer entity, there are some additional fields, and Magento doesn't know what to do with it. I found very interesting script written by some guy. Basically, there's like a form. You enter all the fields you want to exclude. When you run it, it gives you XML file. You can paste it into your XML. So that saves some time. The biggest problem I found with this tool is, and I actually opened a Git issue with Magento, I think like 9 days ago. It didn't respond yet. There's a serious problem with EAV relationships after migration. So as I said, there's no automated tool to verify your data. And after migration, especially if you migrate to enterprise, where attributes are different and there are some additional attributes, the website will be completely broken. Even if you do your XML files correctly, it will be broken because they forgot about 3 tables. They don't update attribute IDs in those very important 3 tables. And for example, you can't create RMA or you can't save a customer, which I think is pretty important. Let's see and wait when they're going to fix that. The way we fixed it was after the migration, we go to those 3 additional tables and we fix it ourselves. And yeah, as I said, those error messages are not detailed enough. For example, mismatch of entities in the document. Wow, great. Which document, what entities? So what I ended up doing was I was going into the class itself and extending the error messaging so I can at least see what kind of entities they're talking about. So yeah, it's a great tool, but I don't think they finished that. Couple tips, which probably save you some time. Divide and conquer. The profile given by Magento, it runs everything on one go. And maybe sometimes you don't want that. So what, for example, we've done, we've created separate configs per entity. We have one config file for documents, for products, one for customers, and one for configuration. And that's going to give you, some kind of separation, so maybe you can run it multiple times so you can control what's going on. Try it with smaller data samples. It's really worth doing it. Like, delete everything apart from 5 products, leave 10 categories, and stuff like that. Run the tool, see the differences in the structures, get your XMLs right, then try it with the bigger data. Otherwise, you're going to be waiting and waiting and waiting. There's a minus VVV, which is used from Symfony CLI. It's going to give you extended debugging. It's not going to tell you more in terms of error message, but it's going to at least tell you which class thrown the exception. There's an option to restart the process. So Magento, as it goes, it records the process in separate tables. So if you don't specify this -r and something goes wrong, it will start where it stopped. But sometimes you want to restart from the beginning. Okay, there's something very important I found. I wasted hours and hours on it. If you're going to create your own handlers or custom code within migration, you are forced to use source and destination resource classes, which are extending original Magento PDO MySQL classes. But they disabled foreign keys tracking there. So when I was deleting my products, I was actually deleting only from one table and the others were polluted. So make sure you switch that back if you want to delete some data. Also, there's an option to rehash the passwords after import. This is absolute performance killer. I was importing 20,000 customers and I couldn't finish that task in 7 hours. I couldn't find what's going wrong because the MySQL was doing nothing. There was something going on with PHP, and I've started to use some profiler, and in the profiler, unfortunately, I found out the password hashing mechanism is completely broken. So if you need to use it, maybe write your own one. It's really, really slowing down. As I said, you can create your own steps or own handlers. Also, what is quite important, some of the attributes you have in Magento 1 might not be required in Magento 2 or vice versa. So because this tool will migrate everything as it is, make sure you check the attributes. The common problem is in Magento 2, telephone is required. In Magento 1, maybe your client has a telephone as not required field, and it will not migrate any telephones. Then suddenly you won't be able to save your customer addresses. So you should look for that. Data migration really should be your first task. You shouldn't write any code, migrate any code. You should check if you can migrate the code, have a really nice base with your products, real products, real categories, customers, then you work on that. The quickest way to run it is to run it on the same server. There's a special option for that, which knows that the database is on the same server, so they use extended inserts and stuff like that. It really speeds up things, but you can do it remotely as well. Magento 1 can be live during migration. This tool can handle that, which is great. You can have Magento 1 up and running, Magento 2 getting all the data, and then all the deltas coming in. There's a really nice guide. You can check it. Login, as I said, can be extended. Also, what's really, really important, because right now we use Composer, it's really easy to install Magento version, let's say, 2.0.0 and use data migration tool 2.0.2. They need to match. First thing, well, when it breaks is because it's mismatched. So you need to check that. Also, from my tips is use scripting to have repeatable process. Create a bash script or any other script and have the whole process scripted. So for example, delete the database, create a new database, install Magento, run data migration tool. So every time you run it, you have exactly the same process, and it can save you a lot of time. For example, when you have some new tables in the database and you forget to drop the database, the table will still be there, and you will spend hours trying to find out what's going on. Create many MySQL dumps in the process. So what I was doing when I was running the tool, whenever I did something, I was doing MySQL dump, so I can easily revert the database to the previous state and run another step. Because it's same like running the tests. It's going to grow with time, and if you need to test it with, let's say, 100,000 products, then you're going to waste a lot of time just waiting for the tool to finish. Yeah, I'm going to say it once again: drop database, create database. I saw it a million times. People just importing. It's really good practice to keep your files separate from core data migration files. So you create your own extension. You can keep the files there. You can keep the files, XML files, anywhere in the system. The only thing you need to remember, when you actually use them in the XML files, you need to be relative to the data migration tool. That's the only thing. Okay, the results. 20K customers. That was within minutes. It was like absolutely blazing fast. 300,000 products in 1 hour. I think it's a really, really good result. When I was calculating the same with the Uber team, it was 10 times slower. So it would take like 28 hours or something like that. So in terms of speed, it's great, yeah? I'm just going to say one more thing. I've tried the Delta migrations. So what I did, I took Magento sample data. I migrated everything to Enterprise 2. I ran the deltas, and I just visited Magento 2 website, and the delta crashed. I've created one product, and it crashed. Deltas are not working. Unless I'm stupid, I don't know how to use it. I've spent significant amount of time trying to fix it. There's something wrong with it. So I wouldn't count on deltas that much. So I think that's it. Thank you very much, guys. If you have any questions?
Any questions? So how do you verify the data? Because you said that
There are no verification for data? So I did sample verification, as I said. So I did a couple known products, I compared them. But my plan is actually to write some automated tool which is going to load the data on both systems and compare it. For example, I don't know, store it in some known format like, I don't know, CSV and compare it like that.
How much memory do you think is required from this?
For 300,000 products, it was, I think, 1.5 gig required. It's not that bad. Memory is cheap nowadays.
Only simple problem.
Sorry?
Only simple problem.
What do you mean simple? No, it was for 300,000 products, config and simple, like different type of products.
Okay. So how much impact is it for, so once you got it working, if
Yeah.
you were to take it to another store, is it because of the differences in the types of products or the differences that's going to make it not work and then you'll have to go through that process again? Or why is it so different for different websites? Once you're
Oh
in the
yeah,
process, why can't you repeat it?
it's different because I haven't seen two identical Magento installations. You always have some extra modules which are adding some extra columns to the tables. It's purely because of the structure. Also, the number of attributes really matters. So yeah, it's definitely case by case. You can't reuse exactly the same files. You always start from scratch. Obviously, you learn which areas you need to look at and how to tweak the configuration files. I think the first time is really slow, but then you get used to it.
So you don't think there'll ever be a one-size-fits-all
No,
migration?
absolutely not.
Did you have any issues with like passwords, like you mentioned? Like
I've tried this rehashing thing and broke, but the actual password, I didn't check it. They were migrated, and as far as I remember, they were hashed using enterprise hasher, so I think they're going to be okay. Yeah, any more questions?
If you migrate from community to for the password, do you have some problem?
I didn't check that. I think that they got solution for that. I didn't check that.
Maybe the algorithm is different.
It is different algorithm, definitely. But there is something in the code which is doing the job, so I didn't check that. I don't think it's going to be a big problem because you're still going to launch a new site. You have a couple options where you can notify customers, like this is our new website, first time you visit it, you need to change your password. There are options there. Yeah?
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
At this stage, what's the most cost-effective route to data migration? Is it CSV, a tool, or writing something?
I successfully migrated data using Magento migration tool, but it required to create a lot of custom code around those EAV entities, around cleaning the data before and after. But I successfully did that. So it depends on the amount of data. If you have lower numbers, I would say below 10,000, I would go with Uber team, do it on your local machine or some stage dev environment. That worked. If you have larger one, I would go for the data migration tool. Yeah?
How would you compare, say, moving someone from Shopify or BigCommerce to Magento 2 and moving someone from Magento 1 to Magento 2, given everything you just said?
You can't really compare that, I would say.
Okay.
But potentially this tool could do that as well.
Yeah. But what I was thinking was that, given that they're so different and that there is no, is it actually like you're continuing on Magento at all, or is it a bit like changing system altogether?
It's changing system altogether. Magento 2 is completely different. Even if Magento claims you can migrate the code with the tools and stuff, there are tools to do it, but no, it's starting again. Yeah.
As they start, as every time they do new releases of Magento 2,
Yeah.
that's going to have to be updated as well.
Yeah, they upgrade data migration tool in sync.
With the things that you had added onto it, though.
It's very much possible it's going to break.
So it's going to be a continual
Oh yeah.
catch-up.
Oh yeah, that's Magento word.
you said in Magento, using the Magento tool, deltas were broken.
Yeah.
So did you use a different tool to migrate the delta, or how did you migrate the delta?
Actually, the plan is to migrate everything, and then from that point, the data will be
So print
yeah.
slide down, migrate everything.
for that moment, yes.
Any plans to open source that?
Open source what?
What you did?
I can open source, but this is really project specific. You won't benefit from that. So that this is not an issue. The issue is with your data. You need to know your data inside out really, especially around EAV structures. That they got it really wrong. So there's a lot of fixing going on afterwards. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you mentioned it actually, but could you just sort of say how long it took you from beginning that data migration project, the 20,000 project, to get to the point where, you know,
I would say in total maybe 3 weeks. Yeah. Yeah.
If you essentially have to start from scratch every time,
Mm-hmm.
is there an advantage to just getting a DB engineer to do scripting? You've got to do that.
I think if I would start the whole process again, what I would do, I would clean the Magento 1 database first. Like, to be 100% happy with it, so delete all the products, categories I'm not going to use, clean the EAV structures, check it if it's like 100% right, then migrate it. That would save me a lot of time. So the route I selected potentially was wrong, but I thought this tool was going to do the job, but obviously it wasn't. So yeah, I would recommend cleaning Magento 1 database first, preparing it exactly as it should be, and then migrating it to Magento 2. Any more questions? You again?
Was migrating because you migrated the customers and products, not orders though, right?
Orders as well.
Orders.
I mean,
Was
I've-
orders and customers
I've-
easier than products?
I've tried orders,
Yeah.
but we decided to take a different approach. But I've tried orders, and that worked.
And customers worked pretty well as well.
Yeah.
It's just products really was the
Yeah, products, but also within the customers, there were issues with EAV forms. So you couldn't save the customer. It was there, it could log in, it could purchase, but in the backend, for example, you couldn't create an order for this customer because the forms were broken. So, yeah,
So that 3 weeks is essentially just for customers and products.
yeah. It was purely to find, because there's no way to test your data really. I was discovering what's broken by browsing the site and checking basic features like creating order, browsing the category, and so on and so on. So it's like a discovery process really. That takes time, and then you need to start again, make sure you got the right data. So yeah, it's a very lengthy process, I would say. Yeah, sorry if I'm running this over, but I thought it's a quite hot topic and maybe a lot of questions. So that's it from me.
I think that was great. If anyone has any final questions, any further questions, we
Yeah,
can talk
definitely,
about
yeah.
afterwards.
Cool.
And that's it. Yeah, we are running a bit late, so I just want
Yep.
to say thank you to everyone for coming. Thank you to Bright Pearl for co-hosting, and to Trizens for co-hosting. And hopefully the sheet with the names went around, and I'll collect that afterwards. And thanks to Marcin.
Thank you.
It was really a good amount of work.
It was. Yeah.